gentlemen, welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I am, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by Bud Myron.
Fresh again, back on the streets and ready to talk to you about professional wrestling.
Sorry, I was adapting to the new, how do I point at you, because I moved
Yes,
you.
I don't know. I thought that was a code for talk up or move your microphone. But I think it did a good job. People, you need to watch the show. So much better in video.
Well, we just tried to shake it up
subtle...
a little bit and put the sponsors on the screen and things like
I
that
love
if you're
it.
watching it.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, because, you can always watch us over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Watch us on YouTube, etc., of course. But at patreon.com, you'd have the show early. Like this week, we got in this roll. Yes. It seems like we've recorded on Tuesday a lot in the last few.
I like a Tuesday recording, yes.
I love a Tuesday recording for a multitude of reasons. But again, you would always find that at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. We greatly appreciate anybody and everybody who's ever supported us over there, catching the stuff early, getting a little bit of extras and all that good stuff there.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I decided I would shake it up a little bit this week. And
I love it.
Just rearrange it.
Also, with us focusing so heavily on YouTube lately, Nick is time stamping the shows for people who need to copy my homework. Okay?
Yeah, I'm putting timestamps not only on the YouTube videos, I'm doing it on the podcast now. So if you're a podcast listener on the audio, hey, so I made the comment, and before we get started, I shouldn't, but I'm going to sidebar for a second. So 2 weeks ago, Spotify exploded and became like the biggest audio platform. So I guess people that, when I responded to that, or I brought that to everybody's attention, all of the Apple podcast listeners exploded and subscribed, I guess, because that blew up this past week. So I was like, it's kind of like a race between who's number one. Is it Apple Podcast? Is it Spotify? We, hey, if you're listening on both, make sure you're subscribing to because that kind of lets us know. And, always let us know at tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Just always curious about where are people listening and watching it. That's just it's good to have that kind of homework and stuff. But
yeah, it's good to see people competing to listen to you in more places. I love everything.
Yeah, and the shock was that the national, that over the last week, I told a couple people they would be surprised when they saw, when we release our top 5 every week. We do the top 5 countries and the top 5 states in the United States of listeners. That, when I pulled all the data every week, I was stunned. Georgia was 5, most of the way through the week, and fell out of the top 5. By the end,
wow.
I was really surprised.
Ever happened before?
No, it's never happened for us. The first time Georgia's ever not been in the top 5, but it goes a lot to be said for those other, California, Texas, and a few others in there, Illinois, Iowa.
National appeal.
Yeah. So kudos. I mean, we appreciate it. But hey, without further ado, man, we don't want to sit here and go too much inside baseball. Let's just jump right into the meat of the topic.
Own some more. Okay, meat of the topic. Our friend Zach from Bedford, Texas. And this is going to be a juicy one. Do the rumors of Ronda Rousey returning change the landscape of the WWE Raw and Smackdowns? What do you think, Nick?
Absolutely 125%. Look, we thought we knew where everything was going, right? Before this, let's before this even rumor happened, were we all under the assumption, Becky would probably go on and wrestle Bianca, right? At Mania. It was a good assumption. We just assumed that's eventually where we were heading.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte was going to go on, and she honestly, we thought, we had hoped, right? Oh, it's going to be Bayley, or it's going to be, she was going to return, or maybe it's Sasha Banks. I mean, hell, maybe we were going to get the triple threat. How cool would that be? Because remember those 3, Charlotte, Sasha, and Bayley, maybe in a triple threat at Mania or something like that. If they're all back in time and healthy. Ronda coming back. Let me ask you this. Does she immediately leapfrog to the front of most likely to win the Rumble?
Well, she's in a damn good place. And this is one of those few rumors that get past our rumor mill and extensive intelligence gathering network. I didn't hear about this till I saw it on the internet. And folks, Ronda Rousey is a big player. Ronda Rousey doesn't need to start out and then, do a couple months and get a big workup till she gets a build to show. Ronda Rousey could come in right now and main event WrestleMania. Just the fact that she's going to be coming back for Royal Rumble, my favorite pay-per-view of the year. I'm so stoked about Royal Rumble and the times where somebody can come out of retirement, somebody can come off maternity leave, and all of a sudden pop in and make a giant impact. I think even if she doesn't win the Rumble, I think she's still a leader of the pack.
I mean, yeah, but I think she leapfrogs to the front of potential winners of the Rumble, and that's just my opinion. You know, and then let's say she does, let's go with if she wins, like where does she go post? You know, and that's what I mean by the changing of the landscape of Raw and SmackDown is because if she wins, does she say I choose Becky, and we get the a one-on-one Becky versus Ronda match that we wanted, but when she left, does she go to SmackDown? And does she go after Charlotte? Right? Because let's go under the assumption that Doudrop isn't going to beat Becky Lynch at the Rumble. As much as we love Doudrop, she's not going to beat Becky at the Rumble, correct?
That's the thing. I don't know. It's the Rumble, Nick. It's all going to depend. The Rumble, in my opinion, how it's booked and who wins and loses is going to be depending on the time schedule of where each match is a lot more than anything else. Like if they come out and have Becky and Doudrop first, and then 3 matches later they have the Women's Rumble, all bets are off.
Right. I think our conspiracy theory on that was more in the men's department than the.
But it could happen in the women's department too, because the women's department all of a sudden has become the more interesting thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on with the men's, but the women's, with all these variables, Bayley, Ronda Rousey, I think the women's Rumble match is probably going to be the biggest surpriser, the biggest shocker.
I think, it would be cool to see. Sorry, you got me. If you're not watching, that's a total joke that you completely missed. Yeah. It's a visual joke. I don't know that I can recover from that.
Sorry about that. I'll take back over. Well, I think what we're going to see is a great pay-per-view.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, hold on. Let me finish my train of thought. I can get through it here. Maybe. So if Rousey comes back, and I think either she wins, because here's the thing: if she wins, she chooses. I don't think she picks Becky. I think that's probably a different route. I think we probably see Charlotte Ronda, but see, Charlotte's in the Rumble. Charlotte's not defending her belt. She says she's going to win the Rumble, and then she's going to pick her opponent. How about either one of two things could happen? It comes down to those two, and she eliminates Charlotte and then chooses her as her opponent at WrestleMania. Or 2, Charlotte eliminates her and picks her as her opponent. She picks Rousey as her opponent because she wants to face her on the biggest stage of them all at WrestleMania.
Well, you just blew all my booking secrets for the next question.
Well, we'll get there.
I don't know what's going to happen, Nick. Anytime they do something with the women, remember when Charlotte went to NXT? That's insane.
Right. Well,
that's awesome stuff.
I think the biggest twist and the challenge they are going to face, though, at this point is Ronda doesn't want to be full-time again. Mm-hmm. She does have the baby at home, and she could be an attraction. She's going to be more. I think she's going to be more Lesnar this time around than she was, last time when she was there consistently. So
this time Lesnar's more Rousey. He's doing the full-time bit.
Right, exactly, which is cool to see. But so as far as changing the landscape goes, I think it dramatically changes, especially if she wins, it's really a wrecking of a. But I know WWE's, the rumors are they want her back really bad, and they're going to make all kinds of a push. By the way, they freed up a lot of money lately, so they can throw money at people to come, And she's still under contract, by the way. You got to remember that.
Yeah, this is the strength of the WWE versus AEW and things like that. When the WWE bears down and knows they have they have to get ratings, and they know they have to draw attention, they just open up the checkbook and start bringing in and all these stars they've built over the years. Yeah. You're going to see all kind of crazy stuff happening between now and Mania.
But it may not be the craziest thing we see at the Rumble, because our next question leads us into what I think could be another crazy situation.
Our friend Harrison from Milford, Connecticut. It's good to hear from you again, Harrison. How do you think the Royal Rumble will affect WWE NXT? Now
Is something?
Here we go.
Yeah.
That fine specimen, Braun Breaker. Do you think he'll be in the Rumble?
I do think he'll be in the Rumble. For some reason, I have a vibe that he'll be in there. So here's what's crazy, and this is how I think it's going to affect NXT. So a month ago, I had heard this crazy rumor that I literally blew off.
Yes.
Like, I took it like there's no way this is going to happen. It's not going to happen. Somebody told me, like, hey, there's a chance AJ wins the Rumble, but yet he challenges Braun Breaker for the NXT title, a la what Charlotte did a few years back when she challenged for the NXT women's title. And I won't lie to you, completely dismissed it. Was like, absolutely not going to happen. Well, then what started happening? He showed up in NXT. He was, had the match with Grayson Waller. Then they had their little thing. And I was like, well, because AJ, remember we talked about this, I can't remember, a couple months ago, about how AJ's a guy that you can just immediately just throw back into the main event, and he's got credibility that everybody, because he was down here doing the tag thing with Omos, but it was like, okay, get him out of that, throw him back into the main event picture, bam, and he's established.
Yep. You get that, it's that AJ Styles rub. AJ Styles has a rub that's bigger than WWE. He's got a little Japan on him. He makes stars. Okay, his programs with people get them over. His matches, every time the AJ Styles match comes up, it's like, oh my God, that was the greatest match of the show. Oh my God. I'm still thinking about that Royal Rumble match with John Cena that was so amazing.
See, and here's the thing, like literally on Raw, he main events Raw with Austin Theory, and they go out there, and I think what AJ Styles has become, and there are other guys on the roster, by the way, there's a multitude of guys. I think what AJ Styles has become is the occasional reminder that, okay, yeah, you don't have to like the WWE booking, which a lot of people don't, there's lots of stuff I don't like either. But like occasionally they just have to remind you that they have as much like wrestling talent in the ring as anybody. And they put on a match that you go, all right, they can still do a wrestling match. But all that being said, I get back to our original point. I feel deep down inside, AJ misses the fact that he didn't get a little bit of NXT time. I think AJ wants to have every belt in WWE history. I think the NXT belts are in that loop. I think he wants to be an NXT champion. By the way, folks, NXT is easier to work than traveling around the country.
Yeah.
For for SmackDown or Raw, whichever brand you put him on, which is going to be Raw because Friday nights are football, high school football, more specifically. So it's easier to go down to Orlando, work a thing, and then come back. He would still probably. I'm just saying. I even think if he were to go on and win the NXT belt, I think that the tag belts wouldn't be too far behind. I think I could see him. I know at one point I had heard a rumor that he was going to become tag champs with Austin Theory because he liked Theory, but whatever. That clearly didn't come to fruition.
How deep of a well is Georgia to provide Austin Theory, AJ Styles, Aja Pereira, now it's Aja Smith, the referee. One of the best referees I've seen in a long time, never mind the fact she's also a female referee. I'm going to give you a prediction. AJ Styles eliminates Braun Breaker to win the Royal Rumble. And that's when the rivalry starts.
Could be. I could see that. I could see him eliminating him and challenging him. And I think the reason I think this is not as far-fetched as it originally may have in my head would have been, I think with the thinning of the roster down in NXT and or whatever, I think like guys quote-unquote going down to NXT is going to be more frequent. It's an easy way to get some guys some ring, like as far as some experience, like wrestling somebody, that's a main roster guy coming down, or for whatever reason, they can make it, especially with creative now, all falling under the Bruce Pritchard like regime of creative. It's easier to kind of coordinate that, whereas before the challenge was they had their own creative at NXT versus over here, so it was kind of hard to make things
storylines mesh. They don't change the
Right.
guy's name. They don't have to.
Well, I
And
just
from
meant
what
from
I
just how
hear,
easy was it for Grayson Waller to, they tied it. AJ going down NXT, Waller coming up to Raw, and then the match happening on NXT. If it's all going through one channel, it's easier to make happen than it is the other way around. So,
and Shawn Michaels is doing the best job he possibly can in the absence of Triple H,
sure,
the absence of Regal, the absence of Samoa Joe, the absence of Road Dogg, and all the other people who ran NXT. Yeah. I think Shawn Michaels has really came up, and people complain about the product, but there wouldn't be a product if it wasn't for him right now.
Could very well be the case. No, I absolutely agree with you. But I think the AJ thing could very well happen. I mean, our question is that something is that something you'd like to see? Email us at tappedoutpod@gmail.com and let us know. Because it is something that, I think would be kind of cool to see, but what do I know? Before we hit our next topics, though, as you see clearly on the screen, if you're watching us on YouTube, this week's sponsor, one of them is BetterHelp.com. So we wanted to make sure we take a few minutes to, give you a little light on BetterHelp.com. Is something preventing you from achieving your goals? What interferes in your happiness? Check out BetterHelp.com/listener. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. Connect in a safe and private online environment that is so convenient. You can start communicating with one in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not a self-help line. It's a professional counseling done securely online. Send a message to your counselor at any time. You'll get timely, thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly and video and phone sessions, all without ever having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional online counseling, and financial aid is even available. The service is available for clients worldwide. Find the particular expertise you need online, and don't limit yourself just to counselors located in your near area. Licensed professional counselors who are specialized in things like depression, anxiety, relationships, stress, sleeping, trauma, anger, LGBT matters, family conflicts, grief, self-esteem. Anything you share is confidential. It's convenient, it's professional, it's affordable. If you don't believe me, and you don't want to take my word, check out the testimonials posted daily on their site. Remember, it's not a crisis line. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor over at betterhelp.com/listener. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health again. That is at BetterHelp, HELP, betterhelp.com/listener. All right, man. Well, what do we got up next, man?
Well, before we go, since we're talking about better health, a dear friend of ours has been in poor health lately, Jimmy Oxendine. I encourage everyone to go find the GoFundMe for him and contribute, or go to one of the benefit shows that are going to come up for him, and do what you can to participate in that.
Yeah, I think
Treasure.
we both shared that. So either one of our, Facebook posts or whatever, and I'll try to get it and share it on Twitter as well. At Tapped Out Pod, folks. If I'll try to share that as well. Because Jimmy's old Ox has been around for a long time, and he's done a lot in Georgia wrestling for sure. And he needs the help. So absolutely, big hugs, Docs. I know he's listening, and we love you, buddy.
Okay, and our friend Scott from Morgan Hill, California, has a very good question. With rumors of guys like Brian Cage, Leo Rush, Joe Janela, and more to come, I'm assuming, is this the beginning of talents that are going to find out they weren't better off in AEW than they would have been in WWE or somewhere else?
Okay. So the questions, we appreciate the question first and foremost, Scott. But I think some will always find out that this is the case. Look, people make moves all the time. Grass is always greener. We make those moves, and then we turn out like, okay, it wasn't always greener, right? How many times do people do that with jobs, just regular jobs?
Oh, yeah.
But however, I do want to say that I think when those people left, and this is kind of what I try to tell people, and a lot of people don't see this or get this sometimes. I think what they saw, it wasn't necessarily that they would 100% be more successful over here. They may have felt like there was just a better opportunity for success, and if that makes any sense.
Makes perfect sense.
And basically in WWE specifically, for those that left there, I know there's others like that. Brian Cage was an Impact, and so there's other variables there, whatever. But sometimes you just see a ceiling where you are. Look, I've been there. I've been in places where I've worked in my career where I was like, this is it. Like, you're not going to go here. If I go over to option B, it doesn't mean I'm going to get beyond that, but I at least see the opportunity to go beyond that. So I think that's a key to this whole thing, because we don't want to crap on the fact that, like, oh, well, they left and they were wrong. Because sometimes just I joke with somebody, sometimes the cost of failure. So like, let's say they don't. It was worth the investment to find out. Like, it's funny. One of my favorite things to hear on Jeff Jarrett and Conrad's podcast, My World, is that it's a calculated risk. It's a business decision to take that risk, and if you fail, it's okay, because the risk was worth that. That it might happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you have to do something like that. And I think the majority of the people that came over found something fairly decent for themselves. If nothing else, they're just with their friends.
They're just happier. You can be just happier.
I think Brian Cage probably missed out on a couple of things, and his wife dug him a hole. Leah Rush is Leah Rush. I think he opens his mouth too much, and then turns around and he shut it up real quick on this last time. And I think Joe Janela, just because he's not good at wrestling. I don't think
he's good at that kind of, or maybe that's not it. Maybe he's just like, we'll discuss him a little bit later. Is, I think that there's the value there, but you're right. I think, there was a handful of other names that, like, I was sitting there kind of going through the roster, and I put them down here, like, to go through. It was O'Reilly, who just got there, by the way, Andrade, Dustin Rhodes, Tony Nese, Matt Sydal, Christian, Sean Spears, and of course, like you said, the others we've already talked about. Like, are they in a better position with the company than they would have been anywhere else? Some is yes, some is no. But like you said, Meyer, there's sometimes other things other than money and position.
Yeah.
Like, Dustin, I think, is the clearest example of, he's probably just happier in his role there, working with he's with Cody, and just, overall.
He's got a school launched.
Right.
I think he probably is in a happier place. It's like a family project for him. He's an elder statesman, and he's making money in the wrestling business.
Sure.
Again. Kyle O'Reilly is in a group. He's in the same group he was in NXT, and I thought that was a great group. And I don't think he's going to be anything but the same thing he was, which is not a bad thing.
No.
But you get to hang out with your friends. And I can imagine getting a job with your friends and being happier. Satisfaction is the most important thing. And I'm assuming the money is similar. So why not?
A lateral move's not bad if you get to go do it with your buddies, right?
Yeah. But Andrade, I don't know where Andrade would have been in WWE. He wasn't exactly tearing it up there. And he's not tearing it up in. So he could have, I think he would probably be better in a company if they want to have more of a Hispanic focus. If you wanted to draw an audience and were to book this guy more prominently, I think it would help you. But I don't know. Maybe he's a dick. He's just never got that overbooking. So.
I think he's one of those that we're not really sure. Like, would he have been better off staying? Is he better off leaving? Time will tell, but I don't know that because Andrade's one of those guys that I remember when he was in WWE, I'm like, he's either going to be champion or like he's going to be like a bust, kind of thing. And I think, so it's kind of hard to judge if he stays where he's at now. It's really hard to measure, but it all comes back to kind of the same, right? But then you've got guys like Tony Nese, Matt Sydal, who look, they're in WWE, they were main event. When I don't mean main eventers, I meant like WWE main event, the show. Like that's where they were focused on, or they were getting beat on Raw, SmackDown, etc. Or they were, you could send them down to NXT, whatever. But I just think that they're going to be guys who get some wins, they're going to put other guys over. Shawn Spears is the one that I'm like, dude, he
never translated. Shawn Spears did not translate from NXT and the 10 thing. He was in that NXT cult when it was so great and NXT was wonderful. Shawn Spears was down there. He got the hype built. He comes up the WWE roster. He misses. He goes over there.
The thing that I will always hold on Spears, Myron, and I'll ask you, because I remember it was like definitively stated, Shawn Spears is going to go to AEW and he's going to be way more than he ever was, and be properly used. And then look, people will argue that he is, he's around MJF, he's the chairman, blah blah blah, all that stuff. He is not in a better position, in my opinion. And it's just my opinion. He's really not. He's not in a better spot, to be honest, in my opinion, than where he was.
But there are no absolutes in wrestling.
No,
and people don't understand that. You can't say he's definitely going to be in a better place, because it's like saying, if I push my chair over there, you're going to be able to hear me better.
And the crazy one, Myron, let me ask you this, because I want to ask you this specific one. I think there's a lot of meat on this one. Christian came over, and his peak in AEW, by the way, was winning the Impact Championship.
Yes.
My argument was, would he have been better just going? I don't think staying in WWE. Would he be in a better position in Impact than he is in AEW? Because, look, at this point now, he's grooming along the Jurassic Express. He's the third wheel because Marco Stunt's gone. I think he would have been a main event guy in Impact, and he could have been a champion over there and wouldn't be going through he's the third wheel of the Jurassic Express if he had gone to Impact instead.
He's being able to mentor right now and be more active on the AEW roster. Nobody liked Marco Stunt except for the people who were trying to tell me what kind of wrestling I should like. That was my opinion on him. But better off on Impact, maybe. He's got a spot though, and maybe he's getting paid a good bit, and he's not having to take bumps. So,
and I think that's where I was going with. I'm not saying he definitively would have been better off in Impact. He definitively would have been off in WWE. My thing is there's still an opportunity there that it could have been the case. So kind of where I'm going with that is, be very careful about I'll jump ship and go to. I think this is the beginning of learning that. Is there an opportunity there? Absolutely. There's an opportunity everywhere. But there's also the opportunity of failure as much as success.
This is our cycle. This is our first cycle of seeing AEW people leave. Okay? We're going to start seeing...
Not released. Just not re-signed.
Just leave. You didn't get released because,
they don't do that.
Tony Khan's your friend. So he didn't release you, but he just didn't re-sign you. And we're going to see people go somewhere else. And maybe you'll see these people prosper. Brian Cage, I would think Brian Cage would be fine wherever he went.
Brian Cage is the one that I just don't get there's a multitude of reasons. And it's because we like 80s wrestlers who are jacked to the, I understand that, biased, whatever. But he's the one that I don't get.
There's only place for one Ruby Hardy in wrestling. Okay. Everybody's wife can't tell them how they need to be booked. That's just my take on it. No. Okay. But here, from Evanston, Indiana, our friend Desmond wants to know, after their largely successful pay-per-view this past weekend, what are your thoughts on Game Changer Wrestling, and what do you think their future looks like? Well, congratulations, guys. But when I read you the card, you were only interested in a few of the matches, much like I was.
Yeah, I mean, so watching this show, I mean, it was different, and I think that's what everybody associates Game Changer with death match and whatever. Going to traditional pay-per-view and, not just streaming on Fight, I think maybe changed up some things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were things at the top that I really, really was looking forward to. There were things that that didn't. Look, everybody knows I'm a Double J mark, right? So it's kind of
Yes.
So him versus Effie, who by the way
Effie's
we saw,
a terrific performer.
Yeah.
Yes.
To me, first of all, I love the new look, the Jarrett look. I love it. Really in shape, way better than I think anybody probably imagined, for his age. But the match itself was really good, and look with him doing with the ending of that match and him basically spanking Effie. There's more to come. There has to be. I just can't imagine. So the only thing I would have, here's the thing, because there was talks of like they ran long and some crunching times later in matches, etc., whatever. The only suggestions that I kind of would have AEW does this, by the way. They've started Dynamites with Paige and Hangman, and they've done it with Omega and Bryan Danielson, and Paige. The only thing I thought might have been cool to watch this show is, and it's not even that I'm huge fans of these guys, but I can respect the fact that the reactions they would have gotten. Like, what if we had led off with Moxley and Homicide?
Solid idea.
Or think about Nick Gage, because Nick Gage is like the GCW guy, right? Like he's
well, he was the surprise factor. He'd cut that video cursing them, saying he wasn't on the card and on his cameo, and then turned around when the Briscoes had the open challenge. Him and Matt Tremont came out.
Right.
So I get that's a surprise, but it doesn't have to be the kind of surprise that happens at the end of the show.
It could have been the beginning. That's what I'm saying. Can you imagine the Briscoes come out there, cut a promo, talk about, like the open challenge, and bam, his music hits. How hot that crowd jumps right out of the gate. Listen, it's what we do, right? We go back and we're like, hey, it's easy to book, Sundays or Saturday or Sunday show on Monday, or Tuesday in this case, whatever that may, they didn't do anything wrong. I was just like, how cool would that have been to see that, that crowd just go bananas. They did go, they were hot later. Don't get me wrong. You want to talk about being hot, man. They were just like, absolutely. Cause what if, here's the hypothetical, Matt Cardona and Joey Janela main evented the show, because you discussed Janela earlier. Like, he may not be the guy in AEW, but in GCW, he's probably the guy. Him and Nick Gage to me are the two that you kind of go, these are the guy in GCW. For whatever reason. I mean, look, I know it's not you, and I get that, and I respect that, but he's just got the stock there. There's the Joey Janela spring break and the on and on and on. But they were so hot for that match. Cardona's drawing so much heat there in GCW, dude. Like, that could have been the main event. It really could have been. It could have been, in my opinion. So
I think Cardona is probably, I'm not going to say he's an unsigned free agent, but he's the closest thing you can get to the most important independent wrestling talent. He wrestles on Impact. He's wrestled on this show. He's drawing heat wherever he goes. He's pissing off the audiences. He's pissing off your traditional deathmatch audiences with his take on things. I love the way Cardona's going. I could have, I could stand to see him do good. I want to see this continue. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, is he making friends, and is he getting over? Is he becoming a big deal in GCW? We'll see. I'm not typically going to watch a lot of it. If this pay-per-view, I could have watched, 20, 30 minutes of it tops and been happy.
No, I get it. So, I mean, and but from a financial side point, everything leads you to believe it was a huge success. I heard interviews with guys involved with the commentary. Obviously, Jeff Jarrett talked about some things. He didn't divulge too much of them, but enough to kind of lead you to believe, hey, this thing was really successful. And it was crazy because somebody asked, when you're talking about their future, Somebody asked, and this is about, okay, I preface this question. Someone asked, this is not a shot at, AEW. This is a legit question. And anybody who understands startup businesses know that this is not a shot at AEW, because I don't know, we're going to address some of this later, why I even have to address it this way. But somebody asked, is GCW the second most profitable company in the country? Because of the way they do business, and they run it like a business. Jarrett was saying it's run like a small territory business. It's not run, and that's where I say, like, so obviously WWE's number one because nobody's even close to that in that area. Most profitable wrestling company and don't get me started on they're not a wrestling company, because that's still my take. But AEW makes a lot of money, sells a lot of tickets, but like Impact, Ring of Honor, NWA, etc., the question is, does their overhead and their expenses completely burn through a lot of the income that they're bringing in, which is kind of hard to determine, right? You can't, with a private company, they don't have to show these records, and nor do they have to. But the question becomes, is GCW more profitable of a model than the others?
I don't know. They don't run a weekly show on television, right? I don't know how their day-to-day operations are. It's interesting to me to learn about things like this, and to have somebody like Jeff Jarrett with a mind for the business being impressed with how they run stuff.
Because did you realize there was a time that WCW was less profitable than like USWA or Memphis or whatever you want to call it? Because you know why?
Yeah. Because
they were spending everybody's like, oh yeah, they're making millions. But if you're spending more millions than you're making, you're not a profitable company. And I get wrestling's not always run that way, but like that's why the question was worded the way it was, is it just being a profitable company? I think that kind of matters, but what do I know? It's
a business.
Yeah, absolutely. But speaking of which, Myron, if you do have a business, what do you need?
A website. Is that right?
A website. That's the answer. And if you need a website, you can check out our friends over at Pair.com. If you have a business, you need a website. What's the best way to get a website up and running? Choose a website hosting company that makes it simple, like Pair Networks. Pair has over 20 years of experience managing the entire digital ecosystem for thousands of online businesses all around the world. Pair makes it easy for you with do-it-yourself website building tools and features, including simple drag-and-drop page design. And they've guaranteed U.S.-based support technicians ready to help you whenever you need it, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Right now, when you sign up with Pair Networks, you'll receive 1 free month of web hosting. See for yourself how easy it is to build your website for free. Visit pair.com/free to get your first month of web hosting for free by using the code QUICKSTART. That's pair.com/free, promo code QUICKSTART to get started today. All right, man. Well, make sure, like I said, if you are a business, anything you're doing and you need a good website, check them over at our buddies at pair.com. And, the link is, of course, in the show notes as well, so you can check them out.
Well, our non-wrestling topic
kind of
is a wrestling topic. Yeah. Jeremy from Hamilton, Ontario, one of our Canadian listeners. Good to hear from you, Jeremy. Why do you think there is so much trolling / venom between wrestling fans who like one wrestling promotion or another? Well, is it just a wrestling problem, Nick?
No. And see, that's the crazy thing is, it's not, because we don't just do it in wrestling anymore. We do it in politics, movies, music, food, blah, blah, blah. Every little thing that we can think. Like we were joking about it before we started the show, right? Like, oh, you if you're a Marvel fan and somebody says, oh, I like DC, shows or whatever, well, you're an idiot. You have horrible taste.
Well, it's like 10 years ago, everybody hated George Lucas for what he'd done. He'd made those prequels and he edited the regular trilogy. And now all of a sudden everybody's like, well, hell, we need George Lucas back because the other people from Disney, and you hate this, you hate that. You do political stuff the same way, music the same way. You can't just like just about anything. Am I? People are bashing the Book of Boba Fett. I don't. I'm not. I enjoy it. But
Well,
why do you have to? Why do you have to be like? It's a bad. It's a television show.
it's
And I'm enjoying it.
it's one of
There's
the things
issues.
one of the things that drives my wife crazy about me is that I try to go out of my way to always understand like how somebody else gets how do they get to the opinion they have? And then two, you just have to understand that's their opinion. Because I always tell her one of the things that bugs me most about our society today is everybody wants everything to be accepted and understood until it contradicts what we believe. Right? I mean, and this isn't political. This isn't. I mean, like I literally mean like everything. Like you want like I like this food or this music. Everybody should like it because it's it. But then the second you disagree and I like something you don't, I'm an idiot for liking that. That's kind of the world we live in. And over on the wrestling side of it, it's kind of what I'm getting at is, I prefer AEW than everything WWE is stupid, or vice versa. I mean, it's not just the one or the other. I'm a
You have
WWE
to take a
fan.
side.
Yeah, you have to choose sides.
You can't. You have to be polar on this whole thing. You can't just say, "Hey, it's wrestling, and I'm going to watch it." Like we did that GCW topic just now, and that kind of stuff to me is unpalatable. I try not to be like you're stupid for watching shit like that.
Well,
But
you're not a deathmatch guy.
I'm not into all that
It drives
stuff.
you
No.
crazy. You can't stand it, right? But at
Yeah.
the same time, I always say it's not for me. But if you like it, cool on you, right? I understand it. And it's funny because here's what I tell people all the time about when they're watching products. Like the whole, okay, let's go back to the original. Like, I like WWE, so I hate AEW. Like, because I'm going to use that example. So you got a WWE loyalist who watches AEW and says the show's trash. And I'm like, if you went into the show open-minded, you'd probably find some things. Look, you're going to find some things you don't like. The same as if you are honest with yourself and you watch a WWE show, there's going to be things that you don't like, right? Even though you're a WWE loyalist, you're still going to find a bunch of stuff that you don't like, vice versa. But my question is, it falls into another thing, is I think we set ourselves up, and I think, by the way, the internet wrestling community does it, etc., to themselves a lot of times. Whereas you hate something so much, or you crap on something so much, when you go into something new, like a new episode or a new show or a new whatever, premium live event, whatever you want to call them. And if you don't like AEW so much so that when you watch the AEW show, you've already predisposed your brain to not like it. And WWE and movies and like it's funny, and everybody's like thinking like I'm going the negative route. I also think it works to the reverse. Marvel movies are so great that when you sit down and watch one, you walk out of it. What's the biggest thing to see online? It's the best Marvel movie ever made. And you're like, again, that's your opinion and that's cool. But sometimes I think we get caught up into, we want it to be, so we talk ourselves into it being.
We had this conversation at home just the other day. Well, I'd like you to watch this TV show with me. Well, I don't like that crap. Well, you've never seen it. Okay. And I made a decision about a television show my girlfriend wanted me to watch with her, sight unseen. No concept about it. I decided I wasn't going to like it based on the fact somebody who suggested it to me, I just didn't want to watch what they suggested. I didn't want to like something somebody else liked. Where do we go? Do we go to form these opinions? Do we form them out of knowledge? Do we form them out of research? Most of the time we just form them out of decisions, snap decisions. Or, well, I watched this when I was a kid. I'm going to continue to watch it now.
Right.
Well, I never thought I'd watch Impact. I'll be honest with you. Until I got started, now Impact's my favorite of the major promotions to watch. Does everybody have to like it? No. We typically go to shows that we like. We typically tend to hit certain shows every time they run, or as many times we can get there, because we like those shows. And we talked about going to a different show this weekend, and I was like, I've never been to that show. I don't know anything about it. But it wasn't one of our normal ones, so I was like, yeah. But I'm not out here fighting with people over the stuff. I can't have a political discussion with my mother. My mother. Okay? The reasonable human being from my childhood is an absolute and total political extremist now. I'm not talking about whose side one of us takes, but we can't have a logical discussion about politics because her opinions are so strong. She goes on the attack first.
Well, and Myron, like I said, to bring it kind of back, right, to wrestling, here's the take. It's her opinion, but it's her way. Like, my way's the way. We can't accept it. And it's, look, it is, guys. Like, and it's I stem to that earlier thing I was talking about, how we are predisposed. Like, you always, it's Meltzer said, or Alvarez said, or Wade Keller said. So you're already predisposed before you go into it sometimes. And it's funny because I was telling somebody the other day is, like, everybody's just giving an opinion. I'm lumping us in here, by the way. There's going to be a punchline to this all at the end, right?
Yeah.
Some opinions are more educated than others. And that's, look, but I always question the source of that opinion. That's what I try to explain to be. Like, I completely respect everybody has a right to an opinion. But especially in wrestling, when someone thinks their way is the way, my comeback is, no, your way is the way you like it. Because there are options that are like, I can enjoy something that you don't like, and you're not wrong. It's just your opinion. I always tell people that I would weigh I always say, like, I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I said, I respect everyone's opinion to have their own opinion, but the weight would probably be measured by many things, and one being the level of success and sustainability that somebody had and said, to establish that opinion.
Yeah, we're not exactly always fighting with the most successful cases. We're pushing for something that may not be the most successful product. It's easier to argue for the WWE because they've been successful all this time.
Right. And
that's just logic. It's easy to argue for the Marvel movies because they've consistently outdrawn the DC movies. But it doesn't mean you don't.
That doesn't mean you can't like this. That's what I always tell people.
Yeah.
Marvel movies, because it's everybody says factually, and it's by the way, I'll turn this into wrestling. By the way, Marvel, because you're the same person who's going to tell me Marvel movies are better. If you want the proof, look how much more money and successful they were at the movie theaters. That person's going to also tell me AEW is better than WWE, but my argument would be, okay, but look at the money that they're making versus the other. And it can be twisted and turned, numbers, by the way. But at the end of the day, when it comes to wrestling, how many times have we looked I said it to somebody this weekend. I looked at somebody who was talking about us, talking about stuff on our show, and I said, we're fucking fans. We've never, ever claimed to be more than that. If somebody else is trying to put out the narrative otherwise, that's on them. Like, we just tell you what we like and what we don't like.
It's like movie reviewers. We're like Rotten Tomatoes. Any of those other things. Somebody just gives you their opinion. The quality of their opinion or the education of their opinion is not important. It's what they want to go see, what they want to spend their money on. And as fans, I go see what I want to go see. When I go see a certain show, I know what I'm going to get and what I enjoy. I'm going to turn on a wrestling promotion with a predisposed notion that most of the time I know what I'm getting and I'll enjoy it. I didn't want to watch Yellowstone because my girlfriend suggested it. And I watched a few episodes and I'm like, well, this is an interesting show. I'm not going to watch All of Us or This Is Us or whatever the hell that show was.
It's a good show.
Is. Huh?
I tease. I say, you should watch it.
It's on its last season because people got tired of watching fat people cry on television or they'd watch this podcast more often.
Look, let's. I don't want to berate this to the death, right? But look, I think it's easy to crap on things. It's just the easy thing to do.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to
you
shit on something than to shine it.
Correct. Like, look, let's spend more time promoting it versus crapping on it, and that's kind of always been our thing from day one. We've never claimed otherwise.
I want to help wrestling.
Yeah.
I want to help the stuff I like.
And the reason everybody's like, okay, so explain now why Paige's picture, because she put a tweet out this week saying that, essentially going like, look, why bitch about it? You have so many options. You really do. You have too many options that you can enjoy to focus on anything that you don't. You're wasting your energy and you're wasting your time. I repeat, if you're shitting on things constantly, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your energy that could be focused on things more productive. And I think that was her tweet, and I think that is a fact. So,
wow, that's pretty profound from Paige.
Yeah, God forbid she has a great opinion, right? So, anyway, well, man, let's keep moving it along. Let's get into that Georgia Indy Talk, man.
Everybody's favorite part, the Georgia Indy Talk.
Yeah, we're running a little long, but let's keep it moving. Obviously, the big news in Georgia this past weekend. IWTV ran a show, Southeast First. They focused on a bunch of promotions from all over the Southeast, brought in tons of them. The big news, of course, coming out of there was AC Mack wins the IWTV title. Easy for me to say. Wanted to take a minute to congratulate Mack.
Yes, congratulations.
Been a fan of Mack for a while. There's a reason why we booked him on our show. He's been champion all over, Southern Honor, Disruptor, Action, blah, 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 all over the place. He's been champion. And he's just one of those guys that you always felt like, how many times did you look at Mac and wonder, like, why is this guy not signed? Like, why he has it. He has the mic skills, and he has all the tools in the toolbox to be successful. And hopefully this is that first step to him kind of continuing to move on.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Always nice, always pleasant to talk to. Just somebody that you're around in the wrestling scene, and just decent guy.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you about your wrestling training or your how good you are on certain moves. I just like to see him on a card and go to that wrestling match. And I think that's the greatest compliment I can give somebody is if I see you on a card, I'm going to be more predisposed to go to that show.
No, 100%. I cannot disagree with you at all. So, kudos from Mac for capturing that gold, and yes. Iris, keep him company for a long, long time. That's our hope. So, but we didn't get to make that trip. I had some doctor's appointments with the wife that kept me from heading on to because literally it's on the complete opposite side of town for us. So that was on me, but on Anarchy, we tried to make up for it. On Saturday, we drove up to Anarchy. And it's funny, we were joking about things about Anarchy, and one of them is, I don't know that anybody runs a show on a stopwatch better than
God, I love a 2-hour show.
Hankins.
I love a 2-hour show.
Yeah.
It's like why I would rather watch SmackDown than Raw.
100%.
I get my fill of the show. I'm not overtired. I'm not tempted to leave before. I mean, there's been shows we've gone to where we've left before the main event because the show had already gone on 4 hours. It was very comfortable in the building. Got to spend time with Larry. Every time we can spend and talk with Larry is always informational. Larry knows so much about wrestling, and he's always a pleasant conversation.
Yep.
Got to spend some time with some of my favorite people in the wrestling business and just listen to them talk.
I always like I don't ever like to talk about who's in that room, but the post Anarchy powwows are always some of the most fun for us.
Yeah, I
know
listen.
That, the listeners are like, okay, what does that even mean? But that's some of the most fun you'll ever have, by the way.
Just talking to smart people.
Now,
people who love wrestling.
Let's go to the stuff in the ring a little bit. Look, I think at this part it's hard to argue, and it's hard to come up with. The program is essentially the backbone of Anarchy at this point. Like, I get it. There's other pieces, and we're going to cover them. But it seems like they're just so tangled in so many stories that's kind of like, between the TV championship, the Heritage Championship, the tag titles, there's so many moving parts that I think, as we head to Hardcore Hell, which we'll discuss in a minute, like, there's so many questions that, like, all of the gold is, right here Like,
Yeah.
what do we do?
NCW Gold's there too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Young Studs with Scott Mason with them. Um,
Okay, while you're chuckling, I'm going to ask you this question that I asked you at Anarchy. I leaned over and said, I have it's a weird, it's a compliment, and it's not even meant to be backhanded, but it's a funny to go, I don't have any business loving Scott Mason as much as I do, but I do.
Yeah, and it's like, would he fit in at Southern Honor? Probably not. Probably not at Southern Fried.
Oh, I think he would work at Southern Fried.
He might work at Southern Fried, but he'd have to get that anger, because what he does so well works because people hate him.
Yeah.
He does that. He gets that hate, and then turns that hate. People are going to laugh at him when he messes up. So he's going to drop those stumbles and those falls and those chicken shit runs, and it's just the crowd is going to get into it. And I don't know if he's ever worked on the stage or as an actor. I doubt it, but he knows how to hold that crowd and piss them off and work them and give them something to laugh about, give them something to yell at him about, call him names.
And I think is that the dynamic of the program that makes them so unique, is that you've got him who's the heat magnet in that sense. You hate Hunter James because he's and I, with all due respect, he's the pretty boy athlete who, that you hate for whatever, because he's cocky, he's arrogant. He's a little pain in the ass, right? That he's the guy that you hated in high school. Everybody did, right? And that's okay, because guess what? That's his role.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have, Proc the Croc Johnson,
who I have to give so much credit for improving on the microphone in his promos. Very good job. I had not got to hear him talk in a while. I think he did a phenomenal job of that. He's getting so hated there. And
I think a lot of time in cars, phone calls, conversations, and backstage with the right people have done him well. And those people know who they are. He's let them know who they are. And I think they know, obviously. But I think the time and efforts put into that program are paying dividends for them.
I love that fountain that starts down there in South Georgia, but runs up through PCW, and it gets directed into the places where the water can flow.
Yeah. And
then they go out and they do things better in other shows. It's been a very good experience.
I think that's the strength of a PCW Anarchy, specifically where we're discussing, is that they take risks, they take opportunities, and they groom these kids up and bring them through the system, and then they go on and do bigger things. It was like, look, people don't want to give credit where credit's due sometimes. Matt coming through the NCW, so just kind of keep those things in mind. Like that next wave is J2 Strong. I joke about it all the time. I'm eager to see if they can capitalize on the connection he has to the crowd. It's a heel connection, but it's a connection nonetheless. The 2 Strong 2 week chant never misses, it seems. It's always a hit. So, but that, so between him and then there was a match of Larry brought it to our attention and he nailed it. Parker Lee, this new kid he's got something, he's got a look, he's special. People were throwing around things like Steamboat, like that's the kind of the look and with a goal that you could get with him. But they're smart enough, those people behind the scenes, put him out there with Nick Halen. Let's give him some education in the ring, and let's teach him and groom, bring him along in the ring as well. And it was a very, very good match. But it was baby, so that's a little bit, whatever. But
is there a place on earth where babyface and heel are more divided, like where the crowd hates the heels and loves the babyfaces? It's so Southern Fried's very similar.
Yeah, I was going to say that's so probably polarized. The thing that comes to mind, because everywhere else, everybody tries to be like cool and cheer the the bad guys and
Yeah.
stuff to debate, but you're right. At Anarchy, they don't like the heels, and at Southern Pride's that way. But Anarchy's clearly like that fan base still doesn't like you if you're a heel.
I love that.
Yeah, that's
what makes
great
wrestling
thing.
work, in my opinion. Good guys and bad guys.
Yeah, and I think as we head towards April 8th and 9th, that is correct. Hardcore Hell is going to be 2 parts, basically 2 nights, with NCW involved on the Friday, the 8th show. So I'm really excited to see where they're heading.
And I'm excited to see what they got going on with NCW, man. We're going to have to take in a show.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like now, the problem. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's the nights they run, things like that. We'll figure all that out down the road. But yeah, I think if you haven't been watching Anarchy, you need to come up to the Landmark Arena and check it out. And see what they got on it, because a lot of special stuff going on up there. Like, hey, because look, you got to try some new things. I brought it up to you. You brought, you talked about it earlier. The All-Star show that's in Royston this coming up Saturday. I'm like, let's go to that. I'm like, we know a couple people on the card. I mean, they deserve, like, people look, they're good, they're bad. There's at every show there is, but kudos for them for, like, they're doing their thing, and they are occasionally bringing in name or whatever. But I just felt like maybe this is the year that people need to, like, expand out and maybe go to shows that were always brushed aside or overlooked, maybe is a better word. And that's kind of why I said,
just find the shows. Yeah. Rob does such a great job.
Yeah.
I'm looking at some of his reports right there. Everybody is reposting his reports because he's the one doing the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, if you look at this, he's had to dig through all these places, all these Facebook pages. I don't know if people send him. If you're a wrestling promoter, send Rob your information.
Yep.
Make it easier on them all.
Yeah, and I've had people commenting. I shared it, and there were people commenting on, putting their posters up that they're running. And, but I always tell you to send that directly to the Rob Rod report, because he'll put you in the list, man. And we're going to share that list anyway. So, but yeah, so All-Star, maybe that's where we head out. There's, like I said, a couple names on there. So check those up in Royston at the Gray Bell.
Definitely.
But before we end the show, in the Georgia Indy Talk, look, I don't care about any other things other than the show that I wanted to say. Like, it was cool to see friend of the show, love him like a brother, Terry Lawler, winning the GCW Brass Knuckles title. He put up a picture, and that I was like, that was so cool. Showed his brother holding the Brass Knucks champion in 1988, him winning it in 2022, holding it up. So I know that meant a lot to him, and I try to tell people, if it meant a lot to him, it means a lot to to us.
Yeah. And yesterday was Terry's birthday, wasn't it?
So nothing but it was his brother's passing. Long story. We'll get all that, his brother's birthday. Anyway, so but
Terry is.
Yeah,
I don't want to overstep you, because whenever we start talking about Terry Lawler, both of us start emoting heavily.
Yeah,
for lack of a better way to put it. Somebody who's done more for us than almost anybody else in the business. Somebody who's been more formative and helpful, and just overall nice.
Yeah, there's. I always tell people there's, the whole, like, I can't remember. I think it was Dusty that told Diamond Dallas Page that if you get out of wrestling and you have, you can count on one hand the number of friends that when you get out of the wrestling business. Sounds about right. That sounds about right. Because there's a difference between, like, acquaintances and people that you talk to all the time and people whatever. There's a couple people, but Terry's always going to be, like, from day one will always be, and it's our history all the way back to high school, so it's a little skewed. But there aren't many, but that's one. I always tell people Terry Lawler's a guy who I will, I don't have to. The great thing is I don't have to defend, right? But if I had to, I would. To an end, because of everything he's done for us and everything, what he means to us along the way. So anything that I can give him shout outs and love and, respect, I think that he earns it. And I think the people that,
yes.
That when they see it, you have to see it to understand it. And that's kind of what I go with. So,
yeah.
But yeah, congratulations Terry.
Man.
Cool to see that. Anytime Terry Lawler's got strap on his shoulders makes me a happy camper. So, but, You also want to know how to make me a happy camper, Myron?
How is that, Nick?
Subscribe. Anywhere, everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMedia, yes, folks, Amazon Music. You can listen to her. It never gets old walking by the Alexa and saying, Alexa, play the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. And it comes on. It drives my wife bananas. Of course, subscribe over on YouTube as well. That's the new home for the video format. We greatly appreciate that. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, everywhere. But of course, the place of all places, patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Show early, show often, extra things along the way. We greatly appreciate it. Like I said, anybody who's ever, spent $1 towards us, we will never let that be lost on us.
Yeah.
And even as you see it scrolling across the top of the screen right now, ProWrestlingTees.com. Go check us out, Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. Get a shirt. We do those still. All the new logos. We got the old stuff, the Tapped Out, Wrestling's Like Women T-shirt, et cetera, et cetera. We appreciate it again. Yep. There's one of the new logos as well. So, definitely check us out at ProWrestlingTees.com as well as, while you're subscribing anywhere and everywhere. All of those places are in the show notes. Those links are there. You can click there, whether you're on YouTube or on the podcast as well. So, anything else, brother, before we
Yes.
What you got?
I want to thank Heath Mulligan for leaving us some internet left over. The other day he uploaded 5 shows. Go check out Heath and Double Dot Kick podcast. Our friend Ox, find that fundraiser. Nick will be posting it. I'll be reposting it. Give to someone who means more to Georgia wrestling than the canvases and the ring posts. And then look down below my beautiful face and you will see a thumbs up. I want you to like this video on YouTube. Then I want you to share this video on YouTube, subscribe to us, and click that bell for notifications so that you know every time we put something up there. Because Nick is not just putting the podcast up there. Nick is putting select wrestling matches now on our network.
That is correct. We were dropping obviously matches from Hell Freezes Over, like individual matches. Last week I did several, Joe Black and JD Drake. This week, obviously, I literally right before we recorded, I put up the Lucha 6-person tag match as well. So keep it, all that kind of stuff. So, and then of course, like you said, I've gone out, I went through, I try to get permission as much as I can. So promotions, I'm putting it out there if you're listening. I try to grab a match, from promotions. I put up the KLT ladder match for the championship. Plowboy, Zach Mosley, and Skrilla. That match is up on there. It did quite well. So it's just kind of a way to get, stuff out there into the
recognize
YouTube.
The talent, recognize the promotions. Like I said, our job as wrestling fans is to talk about the stuff we love and put it over.
Promote some of the talents that are out there, and get it out there. So
yes.
Anyway, anything else, brother?
No, I think I have totally flushed my system of knowledge.
Well, then what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.